His coffee maker had died a spectacular death, shooting grounds all over his kitchen. His car refused to start, forcing him to take the bus. And now, standing in the middle of Times Square, he watched as massive crystalline ships descended from the sky, their hulls gleaming like diamonds in the morning sun. "Oh, for fuck's sake," he muttered, taking a long sip from his gas station coffee. "Not today. I have a performance review at 2. Around him, people were either running in panic or standing still with their phones out, recording what would surely become the most liked TikTok videos in human history. A few enterprising souls were already setting up impromptu hot dog stands to serve the growing crowd of apocalypse watchers. The largest ship, a behemoth that looked like someone had given a geometry-obsessed architect unlimited funding and zero oversight, opened up like a blooming flower. A beam of light shot down, and a holographic figure appeared. Tall, insectoid, and radiating an air of supreme confidence that Dave recognized from every middle manager he'd ever worked for. "Inhabitants of Earth!" The figure boomed in perfect English, though Dave could have sworn he heard it in Spanish, Mandarin, and several other languages simultaneously. "We are the Zexthraxian Empire. Your solar system has been selected for immediate integration into our glorious dominion. Resistance is futile. Submission is mandatory. Please prepare for processing." Dave checked his watch. 9:47 a.m. His review wasn't for another 4 hours. Maybe if the aliens worked quickly. "Furthermore," the hologram continued, "all planetary resources are now property of the Empire. Any attempt to—" "Excuse me!" A woman in a sharp business suit stepped forward, her hand raised like she was at a board meeting. "Quick question about the resource appropriation. Does this affect existing contracts and mineral rights? I represent several mining companies, and will need to update our quarterly projections." The hologram flickered, its mandibles twitching in what might have been confusion. All contracts are null and void. The Empire—" "That's going to be a problem," another voice called out. "I've got 3 kids in college and a mortgage based on those mining stocks. You can't just void contracts without proper notification periods. There are procedures." "Silence!" The hologram's color shifted to a threatening red. "Your primitive economic concerns are irrelevant. We will begin processing your population immediately." Dave raised his hand. "Yeah, hi. Quick follow-up on that. When you say processing, are we talking more like a DMV situation, or more like a Soylent Green situation? Because I've got this review later, and I'd really like to know if I should still bother preparing my self-assessment." The hologram disappeared, replaced by a beam that started scanning the crowd. People began disappearing in flashes of light, presumably teleported aboard the ships. Dave sighed and pulled out his phone to email his boss. Subject: may need to reschedule performance review. Being processed by alien invasion force. Will update timeline when available. Please see attached photo for proof of absence. The response came almost immediately. Performance review will proceed as scheduled. Alien invasion not valid excuse for postponement. Please review company attendance policy. Typical, Dave muttered, right before the teleporter beam caught him. The processing center aboard the Zexthraxian flagship was a marvel of efficiency, assuming one's goal was to thoroughly annoy every human being processed through it. The forms were endless, the questions repetitive, and the chairs, if you could call the crystalline protrusions chairs, seemed designed by someone who had heard of sitting down but considered it a theoretical concept. Species: human. Planet of origin: Earth. Professional status. The Zexthraxian processor drone clicked its mandibles impatiently. Please select from the approved list of occupations. Dave squinted at the holographic display. None of these match modern jobs. The closest to software developer you have is abacus maintenance technician. The form must be completed correctly, the drone insisted. It is impossible to proceed without proper categorization. Fine. Put me down as a digital counting stone artisan. Close enough. In the processing chamber next door, he could hear someone arguing about cryptocurrency wallets and whether they counted as legitimate assets under imperial law. The drone processing that conversation sounded like it was having the alien equivalent of a migraine. Next section, Dave's drone continued. Please list all quantum-capable devices in your possession. I've got a smartphone with a really good camera. The marketing said it had some quantum dots in the display, if that counts. The drone made a sound like a dial-up modem having an existential crisis. Impossible. Your species has not achieved quantum coherence technology. Your devices are primitive radio wave communication tools. Tell that to the marketing department at Samsung. Also, I'm pretty sure my microwave does some quantum stuff. The manual was very insistent about not running it empty. 2 hours of similar conversations later, the drone's originally pristine crystalline form had developed several stress fractures, and Dave was no closer to being properly processed. He had, however, managed to crash their system 3 times by answering questions truthfully about human social media, cryptocurrency, and the concept of memes. Final question, the drone said, its voice now carrying a distinct static undertone. Please state your species' primary method of conflict resolution. Dave thought for a moment. Well, historically speaking, we usually start with strongly worded letters, escalate to economic sanctions, and if that doesn't work, we get creative with whatever we have on hand. You'd be amazed what humans can do with simple chemistry and basic physics when we're properly motivated. Creative with chemistry? The drone's crystalline structure vibrated with what might have been concern. Oh yeah, we've got this whole periodic table of elements, right? And we just love mixing them up to see what happens. Sometimes we blow ourselves up in the process, but that's just part of the scientific method. Trial and error, you know? The drone quickly marked something on its form. Processing complete. Please proceed to holding chamber 7 beta for integration orientation. Dave stood up, stretching his cramped muscles. Quick question before I go. Your ship's hulls, there's some kind of crystalline carbon structure, right? Like really fancy diamond? That is classified information. Huh. Interesting. You might want to look up what humans can do with simple industrial lasers and crystalline structures. Just, for general knowledge. The drone's color shifted to a distinctly worried shade of purple. In holding Chamber 7 Beta, Dave found himself among a diverse crowd of humans, all sharing the same look of annoyed inconvenience rather than the terror the Zekathraxians probably expected. A group of engineers from NASA was huddled in one corner, sketching diagrams on the crystal walls with markers they'd somehow smuggled in. A team of hackers had already figured out how to access the ship's equivalent of Wi-Fi and were leaving 1-star reviews on what appeared to be the galactic equivalent of Yelp. Listen up, everyone. A woman in a lab coat stood on one of the uncomfortable crystal benches. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen from CERN, and I think I've figured out something interesting about our host's technology. Anyone here know anything about lattice structures and resonant frequencies? A forest of hands went up. The Zekathraxians had, apparently, grabbed a statistically improbable number of scientists, engineers, and people who watched too many Discovery Channel documentaries. Excellent. Now, who here has access to their phone's speaker function? Preferably something with good bass. More hands. Someone pulled out a portable Bluetooth speaker they'd somehow kept through processing. Perfect. Their entire ship is one giant crystalline lattice network, and you know what happens to crystals at certain frequencies. A slow grin spread across the crowd. Humans might not have antimatter weapons or quantum-locked shields, but they had something possibly more dangerous. An extensive knowledge of ways to break things, and the spite-driven motivation to use that knowledge. Hey, Dave called out. Anyone know if they processed any opera singers? I've got an idea. In the command center of the flagship, Supreme Commander Zex Thax was beginning to experience what humans would call a really bad feeling about this. The initial invasion had gone according to protocol. Their overwhelming technological superiority had prevented any meaningful military response from Earth's nations. The processing had begun efficiently enough, despite some strange answers on the forms. But something wasn't right. Supreme Commander, a drone reported. We're detecting unusual vibrations throughout the fleet. Some kind of acoustic phenomenon. Source? The human holding chambers. They appear to be singing. Singing? Yes, sir. Something they call Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, at precisely 7.3 times normal volume, synchronized across all ships. The resonance patterns are concerning. Before the commander could respond, another drone burst in, its crystalline form showing signs of stress fractures. Supreme Commander, the humans in Sector 4 have somehow accessed our communication networks. They're what? They're sending something called cat videos to every display in the fleet. Millions of them. The processing cores can't handle the data load, and they've changed all our security passwords to something called password free. Impossible. Our quantum encryption, they said, and I quote, LOL quantum encryption, and then proceeded to explain how they learned this in middle school by passing notes in class. I don't understand, sir. The ship shuddered. Throughout the fleet, the synchronized singing reached a crescendo. Crystalline structures began to vibrate at their resonant frequencies. In holding Chamber 7 Beta, a particularly high note from a former opera singer shattered a wall, creating a chain reaction through the crystalline lattice. Sir! Another drone rushed in. The humans in Engineering Section 12 have discovered that our quantum-locked shields can be disrupted by speak, drone. By pointing their primitive laser pointers at specific angles and saying pew-pew while doing so. They're treating it as some kind of game. They're keeping score. Supreme Commander Zekasthax felt something he hadn't experienced in his 300 cycles of service. Fear. These humans weren't fighting back with advanced technology. They were breaking everything with primitive tools and seeming to enjoy the process. Sir, multiple ships reporting critical structural damage from something called the Bass Drop. The humans are requesting, sick beats for their crystal rave party. The commander stared at his rapidly deteriorating fleet. The humans had turned their invasion into some sort of entertainment, complete with a scoring system and what appeared to be teams competing for most creative ship disassembly method. Attention all forces, he broadcast across the fleet. Disengage immediately. I repeat, disengage from the Sol system. Sir? A drone appeared with another report. The humans they've somehow connected our fleet's control systems to something called Twitter, and are conducting polls on which ships should self-destruct first. The voting participation is quite high. The commander slumped in his crystal throne, which chose that moment to shatter from a particularly enthusiastic rendition of "We Will Rock You," echoing through the ship. Send the retreat signal, he ordered, and delete all records of this system's coordinates from our databases. Mark it as, sir. Mark it as, here be monsters who don't fight fair and seem to enjoy breaking things for fun. 1 week later, Dave finally had his performance review. So, his boss said, reviewing the form, you list helped repel alien invasion under notable achievements? Yes, sir. I have documentation from NASA and several physicists about my contribution to the synchronized crystal-shattering chorus. His boss frowned at the paper. While saving Earth from alien conquest is impressive, you're still showing issues with punctuality. The invasion is no excuse for being 7 minutes late to the post-invasion debriefing meeting. Dave sighed. Some things, it seemed, were universal constants. And that, Professor Kalax concluded to his wide-eyed student, is why the Zekthraxian Empire now requires all ships to be built with non-crystalline materials and maintains a strict do-not-approach policy for the Sol system. But Professor, the student asked, surely they could have simply adjusted their technology to prevent such exploitation. But you're missing the point, young one. The humans didn't win because of the specific vulnerabilities they exploited. They won because they demonstrated something far more terrifying to the galaxy's organized military forces. The ability to turn any invasion into an improvisational science experiment combined with entertainment. I don't understand. The Zekthraxians expected resistance. They expected military opposition. What they got instead was a species that treated their advanced technology like a puzzle to be solved, preferably in the most entertaining way possible. The humans didn't just defeat them, they had fun doing it. And there's nothing more terrifying to a regimented military force than an enemy who treats warfare like a particularly engaging group activity. The professor's mandibles clicked in amusement. There's a reason why, to this day, Earth's planetary defense system consists largely of a sign that reads, "Warning, humans inside. They will break your ships and post videos about it." Does it work? Let me put it this way. Would you want to invade a planet whose inhabitants' first response to antimatter weapons was to figure out how to use them for a light show? The student's tendrils curled in understanding. I think I'll focus my studies on a less creative species. Wise choice. Though I should mention, humans have recently begun exploring interstellar travel. They're calling it Operation Galaxy Pranks. Throughout the galaxy, military strategists felt a sudden, inexplicable shiver. Breaking news from the United Nations Space Command, the holographic anchor announced, her image floating above breakfast tables across Earth. Operation Galaxy Pranks has officially launched its first mission. For those just joining us, this initiative follows humanity's successful defense against the Zekthraxian invasion through what officials are calling aggressive improvisation. Dave Martinez, recently promoted to senior digital counting stone artisan, he still couldn't get HR to use software developer, watched the news while sipping from his new, alien tech-enhanced coffee maker. A souvenir from the invasion that somehow made coffee taste like pure happiness. The mission, the anchor continued, consists of 3 ships, the HMS Mischief, the USS Hold My Beer, and the International Space Vessel Why Not. Their stated goal is, quote, to establish diplomatic relations with alien civilizations, while simultaneously testing their sense of humor. We go now to our correspondent at Mission Control. Dave's phone buzzed. The caller ID showed Dr. Sarah Chen, Galactic Troublemaker. Please tell me you're watching this. Sarah's voice came through, barely containing her excitement. Watching and wondering how we went from repelling an alien invasion to officially sanctioned interstellar pranks in just 6 months, Dave replied. That's why I'm calling. We're going to need your particular brand of bureaucracy-breaking chaos. How do you feel about a field promotion to diplomatic chaos consultant? Dave glanced at his current project, debugging code for a banking app, then at the framed certificate on his wall reading, Distinguished Participant in the Great Crystal Rave Defense of Earth. Will it involve misleading alien civilizations about Earth customs again? Oh, absolutely. Remember how you convinced those Zexthraxian drones that humans communicate important information through interpretive dance? To be fair, they believed it right up until the end. Well, Sarah's grin was audible through the phone. Wait until you hear what we've got planned for the Galactic Council. The Galactic Council's central chamber was everything you'd expect from an ancient institution governing thousands of civilizations. Grandiose, imposing, and completely unprepared for humans. Ambassador Helena Rodriguez stood at the podium, facing representatives from over 300 species. Behind her, a delegation of Earth's finest cultural experts, red, professional chaos agents, waited to present humanity's application for membership. Honorable representatives, Helena began. Earth thanks you for considering our petition to join the Galactic Council. We have prepared a traditional Earth greeting ceremony to demonstrate our civilization's cultural sophistication. Dave, wearing what the delegation had assured the Council was formal Earth diplomatic attire, a Hawaiian shirt covered in pineapples, cargo shorts, and Crocs, stepped forward with a completely straight face. The dance of diplomatic intent will now commence, he announced solemnly. Please note that according to Earth custom, any failure to participate is considered a grave insult requiring immediate trade sanctions. The Earth delegation began performing the Macarena. In their defense, the Council representatives tried to maintain their dignity. But when faced with 30 humans in increasingly ridiculous formal wear performing synchronized dance moves while maintaining perfect diplomatic poker faces, even the most stoic representatives found themselves twitching in their seats. The second movement, Dave declared, represents Earth's commitment to technological innovation. The delegation smoothly transitioned into the robot, then the running man, then something that looked suspiciously like the dance from Thriller. A Vulcanoid representative leaned over to their neighbor, a being of pure energy, and whispered, "Are we certain these are the same humans who defeated the Zexthraxian armada?" According to intelligence reports, the energy being flickered, they did it while playing something called Dance Dance Revolution on the bridge of the flagship. In the Council's upper observation ring, Professor Kalax watched with his young student, mandibles twitching with barely suppressed laughter. "Professor," the student asked, "they're not serious about this being a real diplomatic ceremony, are they?" "Of course not. But notice how no one's willing to call their bluff. After what happened to the Zexthraxians, no one wants to risk finding out what happens if you don't play along with human customs." Down in the chamber, the delegation had somehow gotten representatives from 15 species to join in learning the electric slide. "Report from the USS Hold My Beer," the communications officer announced on the bridge of the HMS Mischief. "They've successfully convinced the Regellian Empire that Earth's primary export is something called rubber chickens, and that they're essential for all formal occasions." Captain Sarah Chen, the promotion had come with her own ship and carte blanche to science the hell out of anyone who looks at Earth funny, nodded approvingly. "And the ISV, why not?" "They've introduced memes to the Andromeda Cultural Exchange Network. The entire Crab Nebula cluster is apparently speaking in impact font now." Sarah leaned back in her captain's chair, which had been modified to swivel dramatically, an essential feature for any human starship commander. "Excellent. Phase 1 of Operation Galaxy Pranks is proceeding as planned. How are the Zexthraxians taking it?" They've filed 17 formal complaints about our ships getting suspiciously close to their borders, while playing something called Never Gonna Give You Up on all frequencies. Only 17? We're slacking. Tell the USS Hold My Beer to increase their drive-by rickrolling frequency. The bridge crew worked with the practiced efficiency of people who had turned interstellar diplomacy into an elaborate cosmic joke, and were getting paid to do it. Screens showed various alien civilizations trying to decipher human culture, each more confused than the last. "Captain," the science officer called out, "we're picking up an interesting signal from Sector 7. Looks like another invasion fleet?" Sarah perked up. "Origin?" "The Drachnid Imperium. According to the database, they're scourge of 12 galaxies, consumers of worlds, harbingers of doom, etc., etc. Standard conquest-focused civilization." "Perfect. I've been wanting to test that new sonic weapon Dave designed. You know, the one that only plays Baby Shark?" The crew grinned. The Drachnids were about to learn what the Exasperated had discovered the hard way. Humans didn't just resist invasion, they turned it into entertainment. The Drachnid Supreme Warfleet, terror of the cosmic void, scourge of a dozen galaxies, arrived in Earth's solar system with all the subtlety of a supernova. Their ships, massive constructs of living metal and dark energy, blocked out the stars themselves. They were met by a single human vessel playing the final countdown on all frequencies. "Insignificant humans!" The Drachnid High Commander's transmission boomed. "Your system is now property of the Imperium. Prepare for..." Yeah, preparation for doom, consumption of worlds, harbinger stuff," Captain Chen interrupted. "Quick question, though. Your ship's hulls, they're psychoreactive living metal, right? Respond to emotional energy?" The High Commander paused. "Yes? Your primitive understanding of..." Cool. Hey, Dave, fire up the Baby Shark cannon." The USS Hold My Beer decloaked behind the Drachnid fleet, speakers ready. The ISV not appeared on their flank, its hull covered in what appeared to be giant googly eyes. "What? What are those decorations for?" a Drachnid officer asked, breaking protocol in their confusion. "Oh, the googly eyes," Sarah grinned. "No tactical value. We just think they're neat. Also, we found out they really annoy people who take themselves too seriously. Now, about that invasion. The next 30 minutes would go down in galactic history as the Great Drachnid Dance Party, involuntary." As it turned out, psycho-reactive living metal ships were particularly susceptible to earworms. By the time Baby Shark hit its 100th repeat, the entire Drachnid fleet was pulsing in rhythm, their fearsome organic architecture doing something that looked suspiciously like the wave. The High Commander tried to maintain authority even as his flagship started doing the shimmy. This is an outrage! We are the Drachnid Imperium! We do not, the humans helpfully supplied. "And that," Professor Kalax explained to a classroom of stunned xenology students, "is why the Drachnid Imperium now maintains a minimum safe distance of 500 light-years from Earth at all times. Their living metal ships apparently developed a permanent appreciation for late 20th century Earth pop music. The entire fleet now breaks into synchronized dancing whenever they detect anything resembling a bass line." "But Professor," a student raised a tentacle, "surely this proves humans are a danger to galactic stability. They've effectively weaponized their own ridiculousness." "On the contrary," Kalax clicked thoughtfully, "they've done something far more impressive. They've made the galaxy laugh at itself. Do you know what happened after the Drachnid incident? The Regellian Empire started hosting rubber chicken formal galas. The Andromean Cultural Network now requires all diplomatic messages to include at least one meme. Even the ZX Thraxians have begun studying human music, though they insist it's purely for defensive purposes." "And the Galactic Council. Did they accept Earth's membership application?" "Oh yes, though they had one condition. Earth must host the annual Intergalactic Cultural Exchange Festival. Last year's theme was, 'Dance like nobody's watching, but everyone actually is.'" Kalax's mandibles twitched. "The Drachnid delegation won first prize. Apparently their living metal ships do an excellent YMCA." Back on Earth, Dave sat in another performance review. "So," his new boss said, reviewing his file, "it says here you're responsible for introducing 3 alien civilizations to something called dad jokes?" 4, actually. The Zentarians have a surprising appreciation for puns. "And this counts as diplomatic work?" "Well, no one's tried to invade us since we convinced the Drachnids that the chicken dance is Earth's most sacred battle ritual." His boss sighed. Very well. But please note that spreading chaos across the galaxy is not an acceptable reason for missing the weekly team-building exercises. What if I taught the team the cha-cha slide? I hear it's now required learning at the Galactic War College. Somewhere in deep space, the Drachnid fleet felt a sudden urge to slide to the left, then slide to the right. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly how humanity liked it. The annual Intergalactic Cultural Exchange Festival was in full swing, and Earth, specifically New York's Central Park, had been transformed into what could only be described as a cosmic carnival meets interstellar food court meets galactic talent show. Dave Martinez, now officially titled Senior Diplomatic Chaos Coordinator, HR had finally given up trying to make sense of human job titles, stood at the entrance, watching as representatives from over 500 alien civilizations attempted to navigate their way through what humanity had dubbed a typical Earth weekend. Status report? Captain Sarah Chen materialized beside him, wearing a t-shirt that read, "My ship rickrolled the Drachnid Empire and all I got was this lousy t-shirt." Well, Dave consulted his tablet. The Vulcanoids are having an existential crisis over hot dogs. The Regelians have become obsessed with karaoke, and someone taught the Zaxthraxians about TikTok challenges. Please tell me you got video of, oh yeah, their attempt at the Invisible Box Challenge has already gone viral across 17 star systems. A group of crystalline beings floated past, each wearing what appeared to be a Hawaiian shirt over their transparent forms. Ever since the invasion, the Zaxthraxians had developed an odd fascination with Earth fashion, particularly its most garish varieties. "Greetings, Dave Human," one called out. "We have discovered this fascinating Earth tradition called dad jokes. Observe. Why did the photon refuse to check into the hotel?" Dave sighed. "Why, it was traveling light! Ha, ha, ha!" The crystalline being vibrated with mechanical precision, having apparently researched human laughter but not quite mastered its natural rhythm. "They've been at this all morning," Sarah whispered as the Zaxthraxians floated away, still practicing their joke delivery. Earlier they spent 2 hours trying to explain knock-knock jokes to the hive mind of Betelgeuse. How'd that go? The entire collective consciousness now responds to, "Who's there?" with, "Interrupting cow." They don't understand why it's funny, but they're absolutely convinced it's crucial to human communication. Above them, the USS Hold My Beer maintained a steady orbit, its hull now decorated with what looked like a massive smiley face. The ship's AI had developed what the crew called a personality, and what regulatory authorities called a concerning tendency toward cosmic-scale performance art. "Captain," Dave's communicator chirped, "we might have a situation at the Earth Games Pavilion." Define situation. The Drachnids discovered Twister. Sarah and Dave exchanged looks. "We're on our way." The scene at the Earth Games Pavilion was exactly as chaotic as one might expect when introducing beings of various shapes, sizes, and number of appendages to the concept of right foot blue. A Drachnid Warmaster, their living metal armor flowing like liquid mercury, had somehow entangled themselves with 3 Regelians, a quantum probability cloud that couldn't decide which spot it was actually touching, and what appeared to be a sentient plant that kept sprouting new limbs whenever it needed to reach a spot. All eyes, sensory organs, and consciousness matrices turned to Professor Calax, who had apparently been invited to testify as an expert on human behavior. "They've made the galaxy laugh at itself," he continued. "Do you realize how remarkable that is? Species that once fought wars over stellar territories are now competing to see who can create the best memes. The Drachnid Imperium, which used to consume worlds, now hosts intergalactic game nights. But the dignity of... dignity?" Calax clicked his mandibles in amusement. "I just watched the entire Council of Artificial Superintelligences attempt to do the Macarena. And you know what? They were having fun. When was the last time anyone could say that about a group of AIs? The council chamber fell silent, broken only by the faint sound of a Drachnid representative's armor quietly humming, "Stayin' Alive." Back at the festival, Dave had just finished mediating a heated debate about whether a quantum probability cloud could actually win at musical chairs when Sarah found him. "You're going to want to see this," she said, leading him to the main stage. There, in what would surely go down as either the greatest or most bizarre moment in galactic history, representatives from every major civilization had gathered for what the schedule called Grand Finale, Unity Through Chaos. The Zaxthraxians had formed a crystalline orchestra, their bodies resonating in perfect harmony. The Drachnid's living metal armor flowed like liquid rhythm. The energy beings pulsed in rainbow patterns. The hive mind had arranged itself into a massive choreographed display, and they were all, every single one of them, performing the most ambitious Rick-roll the galaxy had ever seen. "Never gonna give you up," sang the combined voices of 1,000 different species, some of whom didn't even have what could properly be called voices. "Never gonna let you down." "You know," Dave said, watching as the Vulcanoids attempted to logically explain why they were getting emotional over a 20th century Earth pop song, "I think we might have actually succeeded in our mission." "What mission was that?" Sarah asked. "Spreading chaos across the galaxy?" "No, making the galaxy a little less serious, a little more fun, and a lot more interesting." Above them, the USS Hold My Beer's massive smiley face winked, causing temporary panic among those who hadn't yet learned about Earth's tradition of just messing with you. In the distance, a Zex Thraxian could be heard asking, "Why did the quantum particle cross the probability field?" The galaxy would never be the same, but then again that had been the point all along. Epilogue. Dave's next performance review included a new category, Impact on Galactic Culture. "So," his boss said, reviewing the form, "you're responsible for teaching the Silicon Collective about internet memes?" In my defense, nobody expected them to start communicating exclusively in LOL-cat. And the Drachnid Imperium's new battle cry? Shake it off is a much better motto than consumer of worlds, you have to admit. His boss sighed and stamped the form. Approved. But please note that starting an intergalactic dance party is still not an acceptable excuse for missing the monthly budget meeting. What if I told you the budget meeting has become a TikTok trend in the Andromeda Galaxy? Somewhere in deep space, a Drachnid battle fleet broke into synchronized choreography, their feared world-consuming weapons now permanently repurposed as the galaxy's most impressive disco ball collection. And humanity? They were already planning next year's festival. The theme: memes across the multiverse. The galaxy didn't stand a chance. The end.